Welcome to the Chaos Sector. We return to the Matrix. Again, we're not experts on Greek life, but from what we've seen, Hunter was taking a photo with Sigma Chi members, including Ethan's brother, on November 3rd of 2022, about a week prior to the murders. We don't like to go digging into social media profiles and such, unless it's vital to a specific issue in our investigating. Yet someone helped the chaos out, and we thank you for that. Hunter Johnson was a member of Pi Delta Theta. Quote, Pi Delta Theta, Hunter's frat, unquote. We apologize for hasty analysis, but we saw him with Sigma Chi, and Ethan's brother was there, and well, it appeared he was a member. Here's a bio of Hunter. Quote, this week's senior spotlight features Hunter Johnson. Hunter is majoring in athletic training. He has been our homecoming chair, as well as our intramural chair. When not focusing on school, Hunter loves to win intramurals for the house. After college, he hopes to become an athletic trainer for a professional NBA or NFL team. We wish you best, Hunter, unquote. Now that has been officially proven, with evidence. Some would say, well, duh, Hunter wasn't Sigma Chi. Fair enough, but the chaos essentially works alone. No offense to anyone, of course. Now this changes the analysis mainly from the element of Hunter being deceptive in his memorial speech. We can eliminate that specific lie we concluded he told. He gets a little breathing room from the chaos. Yet he's still not out of the woods in regards to the 4:27 a.m. call by Dylan. And that's really where the focus has always been. Who was driving down Blake Avenue at that time, turning onto Taylor Avenue, heading in the direction where Dylan stayed. Now let's find this fraternity, because it can't be too far. Okay, Pi Delta Theta is located on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street, as we slated it. If anyone recalled, in our investigation, we were focusing on not Pi Delta Theta at the time because we had no knowledge of anyone who belonged to that fraternity. Of course, now things are different, with Hunter being confirmed being a member of that fraternity. But you see that other building to the right side? Oh yeah, that name is quite familiar now, isn't it? Does anyone remember the pearl white Elantra parked on this street? Let's go back down memory lane for a moment and take a look at the vehicle once again. Now this is dated October of 2021, which was about a year prior to the murders. From the looks of it, this is a 2017 model. There are two Greek buildings where this Elantra is parked. You have Delta 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 and Alpha Phi. Both are sororities, but one of them is the home to Kaylee, being Alpha Phi. And of course, traveling south, you have the homes of Hunter Johnson at Pi Delta Theta, Xana, Madison, Bethany, and Dylan, with an asterisk by the side of her name in Pi Beta Phi, including Emily. Hunter's fraternity being across the street of Dylan's sorority, allegedly along with Bethany and his girlfriend Emily. How convenient. Two of the sisters were murdered, Madison and Xana. Now can we all agree that it's highly likely that Pi Beta Phi and Pi Delta Theta was notified not only after the murders, but we will suggest they were notified before and during as well. Keep in mind, it's not like the college circle wasn't aware of the danger those housemates faced. Showalter warned them, so we also assume that the fraternities and sororities were on high alert about a danger. Now, someone is going to have to explain this Greek stuff to the chaos. Emily attended Boise State. This is apparently how she knew Dylan, through their high school years. We assume she transferred from the University of Idaho to Boise State at some point. Who the hell knows? Now here's a photo of the gang weeks prior to the murders. Seems like there was a Halloween party. Both Hunters here, Emily, Ethan's sister Maisie, Ethan, and Xana. The other three individuals, the female next to Hunter, don't know who that is. The male directly above her resembles one of the frat brothers interviewed, and then number 9 can't put a name to that face, but it's on the tip of the tongue. Nevertheless, I find it a bit odd that Xana is pretending to be pregnant here, or a stereotype of bingo playing grandmothers. This is on Emily's Facebook profile. Now who is Eric? Because this individual left a scathing comment on one of her pics. Quote, I couldn't imagine hanging out with a dude that I just saw on camera walk my brother and his girlfriend into an apartment, and then minutes later, horrifying screams can be heard. Then Hunter pretty much calls Ethan a bum and an alcoholic at the memorial or whatnot. What the fuck is going on in that town? Unquote. We followed a potential trail by checking his profile, and there wasn't much there. Yet he is clearly talking about Hunter here and how he basically betrayed Ethan. Essentially the same thing we concluded in the theory Hunter was Sigma Chi. Interesting though, what does he mean by walk my brother and his girlfriend into an apartment though?
Walk my brother and his girlfriend into an apartment. Interesting. So we have to assume this Eric individual is a Sigma Chi alumni. He appeared a bit older in his profile. That would explain why he referred to Ethan as his brother. Might have to search for any photos of him and Ethan together. Unless he's an unknown sibling from another marriage. The term brother refers to fraternity brotherhood. But walk my brother and his girlfriend into an apartment. Then minutes later, horrifying screams can be heard? Okay, so this could be speculation from this Eric individual, as he absorbed a lot from threads and their theories. Or if he was a Sigma Chi frat brother, it's likely he knows what happened via his other frat brothers. Yet he stated that Hunter, Ethan, and Xana were together walking into an apartment. This is not the victim's home, so where exactly would this be? Well, based on our video and audio analysis of the Linda Lane surveillance, this could be Queen Road Apartments. A female is heard screaming out OMG. A male is heard trying to calm her down, or better yet, prevent her from raising an alarm about what was happening. And we do hear Ethan's name in that audio. If anyone recalled that analysis, we came to the conclusion that someone was being beaten, and what sounded like the effects of someone being slammed or thrown against a vehicle door. And there was a horrifying scream heard, being that female who yelled out OMG. That was not, I repeat, that was not a typical OMG. It was a female that was shocked by something she observed. There were claims that Ethan got into a fight with his frat brothers, and this aligns with that setting. Now, if this were true, we have to assume that Hunter, who is deemed his best friend, was also there. In fact, we also inquired about Ethan's brother and sister during this time frame, who had attended the party as well. 2 a.m. is a dark hour, as Ethan's mother stated. Could have been when he was beaten, perhaps even severely beaten, and well, you don't really know what can happen in these circumstances. Maybe he had a cardiac arrest and died at that point. Would explain the female yelling in the background as Ethan collapses. Body taken back to the home and dropped in front of Xana's bedroom. We're still trying to piece that time frame together. It's too fuzzy to clear up, you know. Since there were 2 different reports of Ethan's body discovered, we know that more than likely his body was moved. One report claimed he was discovered in Xana's bed, indicating he was murdered in his sleep. And the other report claimed he was discovered in Xana's doorway, which would be right outside of the bedroom. It's possible Ethan's body was initially dumped near the doorway, picked up, and then put in Xana's bed to make it appear he was murdered in his sleep. Keep in mind, in Eric's perspective, Hunter would have to be involved in this activity. Now on the flip side, or the other scenario, was Ethan attempted to protect himself and Xana against multiple attackers, and was murdered in the doorway. Even still, the same concept applies in picking his body up and placing it in Xana's bed, to make it appear he was murdered in his sleep. You see, there's a very sinister, cunning group of individuals who were thinking on their feet. As we always point out, the reason our theories continue to grow is due to the conflicting information. Ethan was discovered deceased in Xana's bed. Ethan was discovered in the doorway of Xana's bedroom. Which one is it? The fact that there's conflicting reports of this discovery, well, we read between the lines and conclude Ethan's body was moved. Ethan and Xana's whereabouts were, quote, not known, initially by Moscow PD, then they were reported to be at the Sigma Chi party from 10 p.m. to 1:45 a.m. Yet, Xana's father stated they were at home around 12 a.m., eating pizza. And then again, in the exhibit it states that they hadn't made it home yet by 2 a.m. Which one is it? The fact that there's conflicting information regarding the time frame, well, we read between the lines and conclude this is all an attempt at damage control to hide the fight that Ethan had, which could have been fatal. Ironic that Kaylee seemed to be the center of attention in the case, yet actually, it was Ethan and Xana that seemed to be the focus, literally in the house. Out of all the victims in the home, these 2 have 2 different reports of where their bodies were discovered. It indicates that there was an adjustment in this discovery. You had the fake DoorDash delivery specifically to Xana, by the way, which indicates Xana, wait, that supports our belief that she was still alive also, you see. Why was there a fake delivery to Xana of all the housemates in the home? You had Ethan, Kaylee, and Madison, yet Xana was selected to plot up a DoorDash delivery for. Ethan was allegedly, or we can just state it as fact, Ethan was in a fight, which we don't know how severe that was. He could have been knocked unconscious, which was a buzzword for everyone to use in the fake call. He could have been fatally beaten also, and his body brought back to the home by those Sigma Chi frat brothers running away from the neighborhood around 3:12 a.m. Bethany's phone records do not show her calling anyone within the college circle, to our knowledge. Yet Dylan called Emily, due to Emily being her so-called friend, but also being so-called best friends with Zana. But if this call was made at 11:50 a.m., why isn't there a call to Jack D? Didn't he stay across the street? We come to the conclusion that Emily and Hunter were notified, because Zana was still alive, my friends. If she wasn't, Dylan wouldn't have made that fake call. Like mentioned, we suggest that the 11:50 a.m. call was to set up an alibi for Emily and Hunter, who were called earlier. Now let's look at the overall picture here, going back to the map. Kaylee's sorority, located on Elm Street, a pearl white Hyundai Elantra parked on Elm Street, which appeared to be one of the members' vehicles, and a white Elantra was the center of attention. Come to think about it, if many claim lime green won't be detected, heck, pearl white will just be white, even with a non-infrared camera. Of course, the model was alleged to be 2011 through 2013, then updated to 2011 through 2016. Yet, what surveillance has visibly determined the model's year? The exhibit has several vehicles. Those are not the same vehicles. Now could this pearl white Elantra, which is parked near every fraternity and sorority linked to the victims, be the vehicle spotted from one of the cameras in the area, which was the side view? When we say linked to the victims, we simply mean whoever owned that Elantra was a member of one of those sororities, being Triple Delta or Alpha Phi, the sorority of Kaylee. And of course you have Pi Delta Theta and Pi Beta Phi.
Now, we did suggest in our investigation that the pearl white Elantra from Elm Street was potentially the vehicle spotted by the gas station surveillance. Some believe that's not an Elantra, and we've always been optimistic about it. Yet there are a few points about that vehicle that keep it in the equation. It's a white four-door sedan. Visually, this will always be a key point due to the vehicle description, but also there is clearly several white vehicles driving around in that vicinity. Also, it was speeding down White Avenue. Speeding indicates the driver was in a rush to get somewhere or leave somewhere. And this speeding white four-door sedan was spotted at 3:45 a.m., a time frame that is considered to be the approximate time the murders had occurred. But what if it was the vehicle spotted on Ridge Road? There is a connection there, that being Ridge Road. Bonnie resided in a home on Ridge Road, which was a quick zip to every location in the area. Of course, the neighborhood of the victims. You have Nez Pierce Drive, and then you zip up Blake Avenue and reach the other fraternities and sororities relevant to the victims. And vice versa. The travel to Bonnie is a few minutes. The point here is there is definitely a different vehicle spotted on Ridge Road. It is not the lime green Elantra. Heck, some even suggest it's not an Elantra at all. But let's match that vehicle with a 2017 white Elantra. Okay, now this is the side view of the vehicle spotted in that area, which was in the exhibit. You have the side view, the rear view, and the front view, which was cropped out for some mysterious reason. In this side view, this appears to be a four-door sedan, white, silver, or a light gray. Now, we did enhance the snapshots a bit because they were not clear enough for our liking. Now we take a side view of a 2017 pearl white Hyundai Elantra and see if it matches up. It matches to the chaos. What do you guys think? Is this a visual match? That could be a 2017 Hyundai Elantra. Okay, let's check the earlier model, a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra.
It's possible, but there is something that appears very distinct with this vehicle. If you look at the design of the tail lights, the point of the light has a diagonal squared edged shape that is facing upwards. While the older model, being the 2015 model, the tail light's design is more rounded off and it's facing downward. It appears more fluid in its design, like literal fluid, such as a blood droplet, while the 2017 design has a sharper edge and is facing upwards. That detail matches the design of the vehicle in the snapshot. The headlights are not visually distinct to determine which model it would be. Let's examine both models' top half and match them with the vehicle in the surveillance. As you see here, the 2016 or 2015 model, the edge point travels downwards. Now it may appear to resemble the older model in its general shape, yet the edge point in the direction it is facing downward. while on the 2017 model, the edge point is traveling upwards, which matches the vehicle's tail light in surveillance. Understand what we mean by edge point, or apex point of the light itself? The apex point of the older model is facing, or the trajectory is traveling downward, while the apex point of the newer model and its trajectory is traveling upward. Does everyone follow? So we can suggest that this could possibly is key here, this could possibly be a 2017 Hyundai Elantra. Next, let's examine the front view of the vehicle in the exhibit. Honestly, not sure what type of vehicle this is, because they cropped out the top half. The front bumper is damn near universal. I mean, there are tons of vehicles that have that same bumper style. It's alleged to be a Hyundai Elantra. Well, I guess, since it has a similar front bumper design. Whatever, if they say so. Yet this seems to be a different vehicle from Exhibit A, being the side view snapshot. Some claim that Exhibit B is the lime green Elantra, due to examining the alleged damage to the bumper, identical to the front bumper damage on the lime green Elantra. Well, as we pointed out, if this would be the same lime green Elantra in Exhibit B, then you have multiple vehicles, because this does not appear to be the same vehicle in Exhibit A. Now, to be fair, let's examine Exhibit A without any of our visual enhancements. This is the original snapshot of the side view. It's grainy, of course, yet if this were the lime green Elantra, that color would have been displayed. In fact, it looks more like the pearl white Elantra from Elm Street, to be honest. For those saying, oh, that lime green wouldn't be detected, well, if it's not detected with this camera, how in the heck was it detected by the security camera? That was infrared and everything was recorded in grayscale. Come on now. Then we have Exhibit C, the rear view of the vehicle. Honestly, it's inconclusive as to which model this would be. I will say, though, it appears the white tail light of the older model does seem to be visible here. That darker segment of the tail lights would be the white light, while the newer model, the white tail light spans a bit further. That darker segment would span out a bit further, may lean towards the older model, but there may be edits of this vehicle, so we can't really tell. Now let's display the exhibit snapshots. As you see here, they have 3 snapshots of the vehicle, which they are alleging is a Hyundai Elantra ranging from 2011 to 2016. They are also alleging that this is the same vehicle spotted by the neighbor's security camera. But we come to the conclusion that there is at least 2 vehicles here, which means this is not one vehicle spotted by different cameras in the area. Some may disagree, yet there are several vehicles spotted. There was the vehicle spotted on White Avenue near the gas station. That's one white sedan, which was speeding around 3:45 a.m. It was later ruled out as a suspect vehicle without any alibi. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Moscow PD ruled it out due to it not being identified as a Hyundai Elantra. Yet that doesn't rule the vehicle out as a potential suspect, though. Speeding down the road at 3:45 a.m., which is the time frame the murders were estimated to have taken place. You track the vehicle in surveillance, find out where it ends up, and then you question the individuals in the residence who drove the vehicle. That's how you clear the vehicle, but they never did this. And again, this creates suspicion because you can't rule the vehicle out without confirming an alibi for the driver. I'll tell you what if this vehicle speeding down White Avenue is the same vehicle in Exhibit B? They're distorting both images. The gas station image has a camera blocking the window and the roof of the vehicle, and the Exhibit B image literally chopped off the top half of the vehicle. I mean, Exhibit B should have shown the entire vehicle. There is a specific feature of that vehicle that conflicts with the alleged Kohberger's vehicle. The section near the intercooler looks identical here. And if this was the same vehicle, then it's zipping around town in a hurry. And that hurry has to be associated with the attacks on King Road. But if this is the same vehicle, then that vehicle is not only involved, but its path has been tracked by the same surveillance tracking of the alleged Kohberger's vehicle. The clerk stated she reviewed surveillance and then submitted footage to Moscow PD, quote, a cell phone photo of a computer screen showing a white car on Highway 8 in Moscow, Idaho, around 3:45 a.m. On November 13th, according to a clerk who found it while reviewing security footage, unquote. What we physically see is an overlay of the surveillance footage, which was perhaps captured by a cell phone, but this image displayed is not the actual photo taken. This is an overlay of the footage due to obvious visual oddities. First, the surveillance is being displayed with the cell phone's camera being displayed, which is on the back of the cell phone, not the front. In fact, the camera itself can't be physically a part of the device being held. Because, this is disgusting. Let me describe how this is visual vomit. The camera is a part of a device, which would be a cell phone, right? Well, the camera appears to be physically a part of the device, but then it's transparent near the vehicle, which is an overlay of the surveillance footage. At the same time, though, the camera is in front of that overlay, yet it's clearly not physically consistent in being a part of the device. It's a part of, this is outrageous, never seen anything like this. So how can a camera, which is a part of the device being held, appear transparent or faded on the lower portion of the camera? You see the cell phone? Do you see the camera? It's located on the back of the cell phone, common sense. Now we take that same cell phone and attribute the physical properties to what is being displayed in the snapshot. That camera would not be transparent no matter what was done, someone recording from the other side, there being a reflection. None of that would physically affect the goddamn physical properties of the camera built into the cell phone. It won't vanish. It's physically impossible, regardless of how anything is being recorded. And if we focus on the overlay, the camera wouldn't be in front of the overlay, because that's the whole purpose of the overlay being placed over the fucking device. Some claim that this was due to someone outside of the gas station taking a photo of another phone that took a snapshot of the surveillance on the screen. Negative. First off, that is not the monitor displaying surveillance. That is a tablet or cell phone as we see the camera, which isn't physically a part of the device anyway. Second, the surveillance footage wouldn't bleed outside of the device. You know what, that's fine, not going through this again. It can literally ruin the episode due to the frustration explaining this insanity. I mean, this is madness. So obviously this is not the monitor displaying surveillance, which the cell phone camera is capturing. It isn't a reflection of the monitor, none of that. This is an overlay of the surveillance placed in the original photo, which was just a photo of the cell phone. Then we see the fingers of an individual holding the device, and this is more evidence that the footage is an overlay because you can see the transparency of the footage over the fingers. And then there's more. We see the headlight reflection and the lane divider bleeding outside of the physical device, which means, drumroll, it's an overlay. Yet during that same time frame, there was another photo of the monitor displaying the same time frame the vehicle was spotted. Although that screenshot did not display the vehicle speeding by. Now do you see the screenshot? What was so difficult in releasing the same damn snapshot of the surveillance? As an assistant manager who has access to surveillance, surely she knew how to capture a snapshot of the surveillance. Furthermore, why aren't there any more screenshots from this very moment displaying the same vehicle at 3:45 a.m.? It's like they're trying to hide something, you see.
What we concluded is the reason for the suspicion surrounding that initial image released is this was more than likely, or is more than likely, a suspect. Ah yes, those gas station clerks. They have photographic memory, my friends. They observe everything in the store, on the property, near the property. Who comes to get snacks, cigarettes, and gas? Meaning, they have their regulars that come in early in the morning for coffee and cigarettes, those that come in on their lunch breaks, those who come in during rush hour, those who come in over in the evening, and those who come in overnight. The clerk recognized that vehicle, and it was alluded to being the Hyundai Elantra. Quote, a bored gas station employee with an intuition may have given police a break in the case of 4 murdered University of Idaho students. An overnight assistant at the mobile station on White Avenue and Highway 8 told Daily Mail she may have spotted the white Hyundai Elantra that police believe is connected to the fatal stabbings, speeding away from the scene. She said she spent days poring over surveillance footage from the night of November 13th before she spotted a white sedan traveling westbound on White Avenue at around 3:45 a.m., the night of the murder, before turning down a side street. Authorities have said they believe the victims were all killed between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. and have previously asked the public for any information about a white Hyundai Elantra spotted near the off-campus house where the students were stabbed. It remains unclear whether the car caught on the gas station's surveillance cameras is, in fact, the Hyundai Elantra police are looking for. Unquote, that's enough. Now, this clerk claimed she didn't know which direction the vehicle went. Brian Stuttering Stan Entin reported this in his report. Yet somehow she knew it turned on a side street. Which one? Furthermore, the later released surveillance images from that gas station clearly show which direction the vehicle would have went if we could see the actual footage playing. And if we would see it, she definitely knew which direction the vehicle went. Coming from White Avenue, approaching the intersection, there are only 3 possible directions to go. Either the vehicle turned left onto Highway 8, heading back east, straight forward heading west onto Steiner Avenue, which is heading back to the neighborhood, or it turned right, heading north on Highway 8. The clerk knew which direction the vehicle headed, and Moscow PD definitely knew, but it was never confirmed where it went. Not disclosing this information about a vehicle that was deemed a potential suspect, well, that also means they had no interest in pursuing the vehicle as a potential suspect. Oh, really? Koberger wasn't thought of yet, at least in the so-called investigation. Now you may wonder, what is the connection here? Well, it's simple. The reason this vehicle was ruled out is because it didn't coincide with the updated time of death, which they pushed into the 4 a.m. hour. The vehicle is obviously coming from an intersection being White Avenue and Blaine Street. So with it speeding down the road, it could be linked to the murders. Yet in the updated time of death, this vehicle, which would be alleged to be Koberger, couldn't be Koberger's, due to the other surveillance footage they claim is Koberger driving around, you see? Don't forget, we're just now seeing all of that surveillance footage, but Moscow PD already had it, and some of it was collected the very next day. So there is a mystery behind who is driving this vehicle, where it's heading, and where it's coming from. And this was never confirmed. They didn't even make an effort to track the vehicle and interrogate the driver. Wow. We did a prediction of where the vehicle was coming from, which was more than likely traveling from Blaine Street. Now, since the vehicle is speeding, indicating it's either rushing somewhere or rushing away from somewhere at 3:45 a.m., regardless of what type of vehicle many assume this is, can we all come to the logical conclusion that this vehicle is linked to the murders? Mind you, Moscow PD ruled this vehicle out, which was speeding at 3:45 a.m. Clearly it was in a rush to get somewhere, or was in a rush to get away from somewhere, but law enforcement didn't think much of it apparently. Traveling west on White Avenue, the vehicle came from the intersection of White Avenue and Blaine Street. There's a Taco Bell on Blaine Street. Batman, he went to Taco Bell, showing a receipt as if that was an alibi. Yeah, whatever. The alleged Koberger's vehicle was reported to be spotted traveling on Indian Hills Drive, right? What if this vehicle traveling on White Avenue, coming from the intersection of White and Blaine, came from Indian Hills Drive? Blaine intersects with Indian Hills Drive, my friends. Interesting enough, it takes approximately 11 minutes to travel from the neighborhood to White Avenue via the commute on Indian Hills. So let's say this vehicle was coming from the neighborhood. It would have been a neighborhood approximately around 3:30-ish. The vehicle is spotted on White Avenue at 3:45 a.m. Now, if we reverse the path back to the home, taking the same path, we end up with an approximate time of 3:56 a.m. And there was a vehicle spotted in the neighborhood at 3:56 a.m., resembling a Hyundai Elantra. Now, it would appear that the time frames a white vehicle was spotted was all the same vehicle entering the neighborhood. Yet, if the report claims that the DoorDash delivery was delivered at 3:59 a.m., then why wasn't there any footage of this particular vehicle entering the neighborhood? Well, could it be that Bonnie was driving a white Hyundai Elantra? And the reason they haven't revealed the DoorDash delivery in surveillance is because it would be the same fucking vehicle zipping around in and out of the neighborhood. Yep. And it would be fitting that Bonnie, who was staying on Ridge Road, would be driving around that area around the time the murders were unfolding. Koberger wouldn't know those back streets, but Bonnie would definitely know them. And this is why that gas station footage was edited so horribly, because it would reveal that it was in fact an Elantra at 3:45 a.m. We simply take the same narrative of Koberger driving around keeping an eye on the house and apply it to Bonnie driving around in the neighborhood keeping tabs on when the attacks unfolded and when the murders occurred. Around 3:40-ish is perhaps when the murders were committed, or at least the attacks were taking place, and Bonnie speeds back to the neighborhood. Now here's the wacky angle. Well, maybe not so much. There wasn't a DoorDash delivery, meaning Bonnie didn't actually go to Jack in a crack and order anything. We've all seen the bag on the counter, but let's think about something for a moment. If the order was delivered at 3:59 a.m., then was this bag simply trash? Why would Zana put a bag of trash on the counter instead of in the trash can? In addition, it's placed behind the sink, which is not a normal place to put food or trash. So Zana would have consciously placed the bag behind the faucet? That's very strange, so we assume she didn't place it there, which means the bag was not there originally. I think it was all fabricated. The so-called receipt, the report of the delivery being ordered, is all coming from this very bag that had her name on it. And the reason her name was on it is because, well, she was the last victim still alive after the attacks. I know it sounds like a reach, but when someone is still alive after a planned attack, panic sets in, and you have to figure out how to make everything sound sensible. For example, going back to the virtual tour in the living room, it shows a red X in front of Xana's bedroom. Now this red X is where Ethan was alleged to be found. In one report, it states that Ethan was discovered in the doorway of Xana's bedroom, right? Well, apparently his body had teleported back into Xana's bedroom. Quote, speculation that Ethan was found here due to ambiguous interpretation of the affidavit. Unquote, ambiguous interpretation? What in the flying fuck does this mean? Ambiguous interpretation would suggest that detectives didn't know where Ethan's body was discovered, even though they are literally observing the deceased bodies in the home. Now let's briefly review the affidavit and see if there is an ambiguous interpretation of where Ethan was discovered. Quote, Officer Smith and I entered the King Road residence through the bottom floor on the north side of the building. Officer Smith and I then walked upstairs to the second floor. Officer Smith directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, which I later learned through Xana's driver's license and other personal belongings found in the room was Xana Kernodle's, hereafter Kernodle's room. Wait, now keep in mind, upon this arrival to the home, you have Dylan, Bethany, Hunter, and Emily, and 2 next-door neighbors. Let's continue though. Quote, just before this room, there was a bathroom door on the south wall of the hallway. As I approached the room, I could see a body, later identified as Kernodle's, laying on the floor. Kernodle was deceased with wounds, which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. Also in the room was a male later identified as Ethan Chapin, hereafter Chapin. Chapin was also deceased with wounds later determined to be caused by sharp force injuries. Unquote. Now, where in Payne's affidavit is there an ambiguous interpretation of where Ethan's body was discovered? It clearly states that Payne discovered Ethan deceased in the room. Yes, in the room. Yet, the red X indicated that Ethan was discovered in the doorway, which would be prior to, I repeat, prior to Payne seeing Xana's body. You see this shit? Now let's enter Xana's bedroom. As you see here, there are 2 red X's. The red X to the lower left is Xana, which states Xana was found on the floor of bedroom 2B. Okay, this is where Xana was discovered. When we hover over the red X to the upper right, look what it says. Ethan was found in an unknown position and location in bedroom 2B. What in the entire fuck is this? Now that's ambiguous because they are claiming he was found in Xana's room, yet do not know which position he was found, nor the location. How is this possible if his body was discovered in the room? It's because his body was moved from the doorway into Xana's room, staging the crime scene to justify a lone killer narrative in which he was murdered in his sleep. Mind you, there is a report that Ethan's throat was slashed. We don't buy it, even if it was officially reported. Now going back to the affidavit. Payne clearly omitted that he saw Ethan's body first in the doorway. We read between the lines. When they arrived near Xana's bedroom, Payne states, quote, Officer Smith directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, which I later learned through Xana's driver's license and other personal belongings, unquote. This is avoiding explaining he saw Ethan's body in the doorway first. He's in the middle of describing the setting of arriving at Xana's bedroom, and then he speaks about identifying that it was Xana's bedroom by discovering her belongings. Yet this is explained in reverse, because right after that, he goes on to explain that he discovered Xana deceased in the bedroom. It's as if he already knew who she was before seeing her body, right? The way he explained it in such a fragmented manner, it creates a setting where Payne was in the room trying to identify Xana before even observing her deceased in the bedroom. You understand? Okay, let me elaborate a bit. Officer Smith directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor. As I approached the room, I could see a body, later identified as Kernodle's, laying on the floor. Kernodle was deceased with wounds, which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. Now in this description, Payne is observing the deceased body first, then the next step is to identify the victim. Yet he explains that he identified Xana by her driver's license and personal belongings first. Yes, this was the first thing he established. Before going on to explain, he saw her deceased body. You don't mention anything about the victim personally until you've established that the victim was discovered first. Since you didn't know the victim, the first thing you need to establish in your affidavit is that you observed a deceased female in a bedroom. Then after this is established, then you go on to explain the details about the victim. But a lead detective can have an off day, right? It's what we call filler excessive explanations for something simple. The same with mentioning the bathroom door. If there wasn't anything relevant about the bathroom or the bathroom door, then why mention it? Because this is where Ethan's body was discovered. Yep, right where the red X is located on the floor, the bathroom is to the left side approaching. You see, guilt makes you say things that you don't realize is incriminating, and Payne, being the lead detective, knew that Dylan and Bethany knew their housemates were murdered. And even the photos within the home after it had been cleaned out has trash and debris right where Ethan's body was discovered. In fact, what is all of that trash? Let's zoom in on that for a moment. It appears to be crumbled sheetrock. But there is more there. The object at the top does have red on it. I see red on the third object. Appears to be paper though. But the fourth object appears to be a rock. There's white underneath it. Maybe that's a floor scrubber. There's white marks on the floor, which indicate it had been cleaned. Sure, there was a bloody massacre. Yet if they cleaned this specific area, which is where the red X indicated Ethan's body was discovered, then they tried to get rid of the evidence, specifically right here, that he was in fact discovered in the doorway. And that destroys the narrative. He was murdered in his sleep, discovered in Xana's bedroom, which again proves Ethan's body was in front of Xana, so Payne would have saw it, and obviously Dylan would have saw his body first. We already know this, but this may be the physical evidence to really prove it. We're in it for the long haul this episode, bear with us. Mentioning the bathroom was an involuntary subconscious release of information by Payne. He consciously wasn't doing it, nor did he even know why. His subconscious released information about the bathroom because Ethan's body was laying right next to it. So like involuntary muscle twitches, he mentioned the bathroom without realizing why he did it. Sure, he could have thought it was a part of describing the physical details of the home and where he was physically located, but that wasn't the real reason he mentioned it. Payne was oblivious to why he mentioned it, even though he's standing right in front of a deceased Ethan. You understand? The same way Taylor lured him into a trap on the stand, getting him to admit things that will definitely come back to bite him in the ass come trial. This is important because Payne may have decided to move Ethan's body to Xana's bedroom. So of course the next step is to execute, you guessed it, damage.
Involuntary subconscious release for sure. Then he goes on to state he saw a male, later identified as Ethan Chapin, but if you notice, he didn't explain how he identified Ethan, you see? Well, it would be obvious as to how he would identify him. There's no need to elaborate on that. Oh wait, he felt he needed to elaborate on how he identified Xana. Oh, okay. I guess it is necessary. That explanation is merely to disguise the discovery of Ethan laying next to the bathroom in the doorway. Imagine grilling Payne on the stand, asking him about the, quote, ambiguous interpretation of where Ethan's body was discovered. Officer Payne, there was a report that stated there was a, quote, ambiguous interpretation of where Ethan's body was discovered. I think this needs to be explained to the courtroom, because based on that description, it's suggesting that law enforcement were not sure where Ethan's body was located. Yet in your affidavit, you state that Ethan was discovered in Xana's bedroom. It is also stated, which is a bit concerning, that Ethan's body was in fact discovered in Xana's bedroom, but there wasn't clarification of what position he was in, nor the location in the bedroom. I find this information extremely concerning, because to be honest with you, it indicates that Ethan's body had been moved from one location to another location. Can you explain how this discovery was somehow confusing? And Payne's brain would shut down, trying to make sense of all this fuckery. Now the reason we're breaking all of this down, again, is because we have come to the conclusion that Xana was still breathing and alive after the attacks. And during this time frame, there were multiple white or light-colored vehicles zipping around that neighborhood.
Then you had the infamous white Elantra crashed and abandoned in Oregon. Vehicle was ruled out without even investigating. So you have two vehicles ruled out without confirming absolutely nothing, establishing an alibi. Then you have the Linda Lane surveillance, displaying what appears to be a white Elantra, yet there are also other vehicles spotted circling Queen Road apartments. You have the surveillance from areas surrounding the neighborhood, such as Ridge Road, which, based on the side view, is definitely not lime green. And you have the surveillance from the security camera, which shows a light-colored or white vehicle that could be an Elantra. The point here is that a Hyundai Elantra is seen, yet there may be a 2017 model driving around as well. And that 2017 model was parked on Elm Street, right across from them. So it's still possible that the pearl white Elantra could have been one of the vehicles driving around due to relevance. That relevance being a fellow Alpha Phi sister of Kaylee, or simply knowing the victims and decided to drive around the neighborhood out of curiosity. Now, coming all the way back to Hunter, Dylan makes a call to an unidentified person at 4:27 a.m. A vehicle is spotted driving down Blake about a minute later and turning west on Taylor Avenue. 10 minutes later, the vehicle heads back east on Taylor, turns on Blake, and then makes a left onto Nez Pierce Drive. But initially, upon further review, the vehicle didn't turn from Nez Pierce Drive. It was on Blake Avenue. Now here's the thing, Elm Street turns into Blake Avenue. Now traveling south from Blake Avenue, the previous intersections are Sweet Avenue, University Avenue, and Idaho Avenue. We're just using logic here. Since Kaylee's sorority was on Elm Street, Hunter's fraternity was on Elm Street, Dylan, Bethany, Zana, Madison, and Emily's sorority was off Idaho Avenue and Deacon Street. Is it likely that the dark-colored vehicle came from one of these locations? We know that vehicle turned onto Nez Pierce Drive after coming from Taylor Avenue, and it's logical that it came from the neighborhood. Again, this is why it's important to view the neighbor's security camera footage in depth, just like the Linda Lane footage. And now, with this perspective, it's even more likely that it was Hunter, since the vehicle was traveling south on Blake Avenue, which turns into Elm Street heading north, which is where his fraternity is. We're circling around the truth, but we can't pinpoint it. Let's examine that footage one more time. As we see, the headlights seem to be before Nez Pierce Drive, which means it was traveling on Blake Avenue, heading to Taylor Avenue at this time. Yet returning back, it turns onto Nez Pierce Drive, where Sigma Chi is located. The context clues here are that the person went to the home, discovered Ethan deceased, then went to Sigma Chi afterwards. Of course, this is speculation. But Dylan made a call to someone who wasn't identified at 4:27 a.m. It takes approximately 2 minutes to get to Taylor from Elm Street, which the dark-colored vehicle was spotted at 4:28 a.m. Now, let's just keep focusing on the connections. Kaylee's sorority was on Elm Street. Hunter's fraternity was on Elm Street. Dylan, Bethany, Madison, Zana, and Emily's sorority was on Deacon Street, all in the same area. Hunter heads back to his fraternity, gets a call at 4:27 a.m. from Dylan, and then comes to the house soon after. 10 minutes later, heads to Sigma Chi, and there was a quote meeting about the tragedy. It's possible he was dropped off, along with Emily also. That sounds about right. Then soon after, the 911 call was made, the real one. Before this call, though, Zana was still alive, and something needed to be done about it. And well, they all decided it was best for Zana to perish with the love of her life. It's understandable, especially due to the motive behind the murders. Hunter goes and grabs a knife out of the kitchen, and that was all she wrote. Of course, some may state the chaos rumbles downhill sometimes. We're just exploring all possibilities when you think about it. That's not so bad. This is the chaos sector.